Okay, so this doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Here's the pigtail that comes with the zip tips, and it goes right there. But it has to pass through this rubber grommet. Now, it's no issue at all. Oh, they're only $3,000. It's no issue at all getting to the rubber grommet. But the part that just baffles me is I'd have to cut, there's enough edging that it won't chafe, but I'd have to cut the entire rubber grommet out, which kind of defeats the purpose, I think, of having like some sort of small hole here just for wires to pass through to prevent water from getting into this area. Now this is okay, so I've got the zip tips trimmed, and I think my gaps look pretty good. I mean, I'll tighten it all up. It's not perfectly even, don't ignore the lines. But so the problem that everybody talks about is this. So my flaps are pushed forward as far as they go. My aileron is set to match the flaps. As you can see, you can't even tell the difference between my ailerons and flaps. And then you have this 1/2-inch gap. Sorry, that's a nasty mosquito bite on my hand if you saw that. So my guess is at least when I spoke to Zip Tips, to Aveo, they basically molded these off of the van's tips. Now, the van's tips are so flimsy in the back that, getting this bend is no problem. The zip tips are much beefier. They're very thick back here, as you can tell. So they don't bend so easy. Now, I got a hold of the RV10 instructions, and it says to do this with a ratchet strap. Now, I can definitely get this ratchet strap tighter, but I'm getting worried. I don't want it to crack or something up here. Now, some people have said that you can kind of slip and twist the tip in here to make up that gap. I'm gonna try that again, but I'm at a loss right now. So I'm gonna mess with this a little bit more, and whatever I'm able to figure out, I'll let you know. Yeah, baby. I got a little help from Michigan Matt. I don't know Matt's last name, but I met Matt in the amazing RV10 Facebook group. And we spoke a little bit about this last week, and then when I finally got to this step, I just called him. I'm like, man, I'm having trouble here. So here's what he said to do, and this was perfect. So I did the best I could. I showed it to you in the video about an hour ago. Sorry, low battery warning. Then he had me put one cleco in on each side, the bottommost cleco. Then I took the tape off. I was able to kind of pull on it. You'll see, hold on, if I can do this with one hand. Let me try it from this side. You can kind of flex it a little bit. So I was able to pull on it and get a little more ratchet and move this strap on top of the rivet line where we have a rib. Got it a little tighter, put another cleco in on each side, got it a little tighter, put another cleco in, and now I'm at 4 clecos on each side. And we're only showing about 1/8 of an inch gap. I mean, look it. So I'm gonna be able to pull this, look, watch. I'm gonna ratchet this the last bit tighter, and then we're perfect. So I'm gonna probably get one more cleco in, ratchet it a bit tighter, and then I'll share with you when I'm done with all this. I'm gonna finish it tomorrow though, it's getting late here, and this is when mistakes happen. So, cool, we're getting there. Thank you, Michigan Matt. All right, I think we got it. So I started taking the clecos out because I'm gonna do the other side, and then I realized I didn't film a video, so I just put one back in the top. That's why some clecos are missing. But I mean, depending on the angle you look at this, yeah, you know, we're off by a tiny little gap there. But I mean, come on. I'm building this airplane to fly. I'm not building an award-winning airplane, and I'm not trying to race a Rhino with this thing. So I think we're good enough there. I could not be happier. These are a little confusing. I think my gapping is pretty good here. Don't worry about that line. It kind of throws off your eye. And then on this side, same thing. Kind of wish I made this bigger to fill that gap a little more. But hey, what are you gonna do? It's also not perfectly straight, but hey, what are you gonna do? So a couple of quick tips here. One, just start small as always and get bigger. And then, like I said in the other videos, just kind of work it this way while you're drilling and clecoing. So I'm gonna remove this now. I'm gonna do the other one. You can see I started it there. I just gotta final fit it and drill it. And then I will fiberglass in the light housings. And, well, here, let me just show you these. I don't know if this is the correct one, but they basically, it goes in, sorry. It kind of goes in here. Yeah, that's not the right one. That's why it's not fitting, but it kind of goes in like that. Obviously, it'll be straight. I don't want to grab the other one, but then I'll trim it to match and fiberglass it in, and I'll show you what that looks like when it's all done. Okay, so this is the second wingtip, and I was a little afraid on the first one to ratchet this tight enough, but you can see we've got it perfect now. So, I gotta go run some errands, but I just put the first 2 clecos in on both sides just to make sure that this ratchet strap doesn't slip off and the tip go flying or something. It might also help just kind of keep its shape a little bit, but yeah, I'll come back home and I'll drill all these, and I have good gapping here, but it's a little too tight here. So I'll just straighten that out. I'll sand that down a little bit, and that's fine because my Dremel burnt it a little bit. Other than that, we'll get this one drilled up and we're in great shape. Hey Damien, so here's a quick video kind of about what I was talking about today, about how there's just a little bit of an issue with this light module fitting in here. And this is, I'll show it to you in a second, but this is the issue, is by the time I've trimmed this, and it's a 1/2 inch, by the time I trim this and then drill these holes, when I insert the light module, let me do this right now, back into here. Sorry, hold on, let me set it down. Yep. Okay, so when I insert this module back into here, you can see if I position it where it fits perfectly, it's this lip right here fits above where we glued the clear plastic. Fits in there like a glove. Just perfect. Lines up with the pencil marks you guys did. Everything's great. So here I thought that was perfect. So I match drilled my holes. You can see them here. But the problem is those holes are so close the flat deck that, where's my nut plate? Oh, come on, man. Sorry, I wasn't organized. Let me grab a nut plate. Sorry, thought I had a nut plate out. I don't know where it went. So when I put my nut plate, there's no room. Like, literally, my nut plate won't fit. So, in order for me to give me some space, I have to move this down. Now, if I move it down, now it creates a gap, which, no big deal. I could fill that in with epoxy, and it rests on top. Like, instead of resting nice and neat, sorry guys, it's really hard with one hand. Instead of resting nice and neat right here, I have to push it down a little further, and now you can kind of see it's resting on top of the light housing. Now, I know a lot of this gets trimmed off, but this is what I'm going to have to do. So this is where I'm going to have it so that I could fit it in there, versus where it fits ever so nicely like this. So that's all. That's all. Just wanted to let you know that. Happy to shoot some more pictures. Let me just kind of film this for you so you get an idea of what I mean. See how it rests on top. Now, if I come in here, it's fine. If I look through here, it's not so low that you could see it. Let me bring it up a little higher. Oh, I can't do this with one hand. You know, it's fine, but maybe we move this down a half an inch to give room for this. So that's all. I'm also going to send you videos of how I attach the whole thing to the wings, and used ratchet straps and everything to drill the holes so that way the tail end lines up. I mean, it would be nice if the mold was fixed to allow for that rather than us having to do the ratchet straps, but it is what it is. Sorry I didn't film this process, but I'm working under a clock with the epoxy, but basically I mixed up some epoxy with Phlox, which is like a cotton substance that makes it thick like frosting. You can thicken it as much as you want, but I think because of the problem I described, where when this rests in its original perfect position, it doesn't allow me to drill through these holes and leave room for the nuts on that side. I had to move it down a little bit. Well, when you move it down a little bit, you create a little bit of a gap. Will that focus? You can barely see it, but basically I've epoxied this in now, and I've used this kind of thick Phlox epoxy mixture to fill that gap. Now, that won't be the main structural integrity, because there's going to be 2 rivets for every one of these holes that are going to hold it in here. But I also needed to make sure that I had some epoxy and some substance behind it, so when I squeeze those rivets, the whole structure doesn't collapse on me. So there's some Phlox in there. Did it on both sides. When that cures, I'm gonna trim this down, test fit everything, and then assuming that's good, I will fiberglass with some fiberglass tape. I'll fiberglass in just with like a 2-inch thick piece of tape. Fiberglass, I mean, the rest of the light housing fixture, and that should hold it in pretty securely. And then we'll be ready to start doing the work on these with countersinking those and drilling the 2 holes for the riv nuts on the back. All right, so whoa. All right, so in an effort to maintain the rigidity and to relieve some pressure from what the ratchet strap, when the ratchet strap obviously isn't on there, what I've done is, let me first show you over here. So this is the wedge that fits into the zip tips. The regular Vans tips have an aluminum piece that gets riveted in. This gets epoxied in. So what I've done is I've epoxied this in to here. Everything is still number 40 holes, including this. The epoxy is almost fully cured on the light housing, but not fully. I mean, like, it's been like 5 hours, but I trimmed it, and then I epoxied in the wedge. I ratchet strap it, or I strapped it back on. I put some Clecos in, and then I drilled a few holes. So there's epoxy in that wedge. I drilled a few holes and Clecoed them just to hold the wedge in place while it's all curing. When the wedge is cured, I'll relieve everything from here. And then I'll just fill these holes with epoxy. Or I might stick like a, I don't know, I might rivet them and make sure that the rivet line is low enough that I can cover it. Just, I don't want to have rivets here. I mean, you could, but I don't want to. But I'll probably just fill those holes in, and then I'm going to glass the wedge in place from the inside. So even though it goes in like this, I'll just put some glass back here and kind of epoxy it down. That'll hold it in place. So then with the wedge epoxied and glassed in place under, you know, it's gonna glue to this shape with everything here. I think this is gonna be pretty strong. It's gonna hold its shape because the light housing and everything. And then there's a little bit of tension. Sorry, man, I just got this just nasty mosquito bite that popped open. It just looks terrible. But there's a little bit of tension that I can feel. Once I upsize these holes to number 30s and then eventually to 28s, we're gonna relieve all that tension. It'll all be fine. So I'm pretty happy with this process, and again, I'll keep updating you as I go. Good job.
I see it right here.
Yep. You gotta be straight up and down. Good job. Okay. Okay, so if you've never seen these before, in the background, what I'm doing is using something called solder sleeves. I'll put a picture of them up here right now so you can see what they are. You can get these at any of the high-end airplane shops, any of the avionics shops. They have some on Amazon. Use those at your own risk versus the airplane ones. The ones on Amazon are much cheaper. But basically what these are is a sleeve, a tube that has like heavy duty shrink wrap on the outside. It has like hot glue that melts. And then it has a metal ring with solder in it. And so you basically just put the two wires through the middle, and then you'll see here me using the heat gun. The glue melts, the tube shrinks, the solder melts, and it creates this perfect connection without having to crimp anything. So it's soldered and glued and waterproofed and everything. And they're just awesome. And they're all in one. And I just love using them. I discovered them about 4 months ago through talking to some airplane people, because I like to solder everything, but airplane people don't like to solder because, one, it's hard to get into tight places, but two, it creates a very hard joint that can snap versus a joint like this that's a little more flexible. I loved using them. I'm going to be using these things all over the airplane going forward. Hey everybody, forgive the hair. 3 baseball games today coaching my son. He won the tournament. We had a game on Friday, 2 games on Saturday, 3 games today to win the tournament and bring home the gold ring. So good job, Cooper. We're ready. We're ready to test the zip tips on the RV10. Following the diagram, I mean, it took me a while to figure this out. This is something new to me. But I've got my whole little science experiment here. Again, I'm not an electrical engineer. I'm just
figuring this out like you guys, but hopefully this helps. So basically, according to this, and actually I'll just upload it. So first thing we're gonna do is, this is a 12-volt power supply. We're gonna go positive to positive, negative to negative. And when we do that, we get our landing lights. Okay, then I need to ground the brown wire, which is labeled here as brown, which it already is grounded. And then I've also got another ground going to the green. Well, before we do that for wigwag, first let me show you. Let me now bring positive to the yellow, which is going to now give us taxi lights. Then, if I bring ground to the green, we'll get wigwag. Okay, so that's working. So for simplicity, I'm gonna take that off and I'm gonna disconnect yellow. I'm just gonna leave power on there. And now let's go to orange for the strobe, positive to orange. So you can see we're getting a strobe up front and strobe in the back. And then if I take positive to the gray, we should get our position lights. And we have a green light up front. Let's just do that. So yep, so now you can see we have a green light up front, and we do, it's hard to see, but we do have my position light on in the back. And so that concludes the test. Yes, small accomplishments. Let me just quickly show you what it looks like inside, in case I haven't done this yet. So basically then, what I did is, I took the 4 wires that are going to the rear, I disconnected this following the diagram and pushed those 4 wires into the plug where they're supposed to go. Hopefully you can see this okay. And then just put a little hole in here with a grommet. And this is the right tip. It is done. I'm going to do the left tip tomorrow, and the reason I haven't done the left tip yet is I have to put my VOR antenna in it. I'll show that to you later. Have a great one. I know I talked in the previous video about solder sleeves, but this is the coax cable for the antenna that you need to solder on their ring connectors. Okay, so while I was editing the video, I realized I kind of went through some problems but didn't really show the fixes. So first of all, the first thing I want to talk about is this cord here. This is the cord to the tail lights. The zip tips don't have it, but I drilled a hole, put a grommet, and then if you look very closely in the instructions, I quickly described it, but basically there's 4 pins and they go into very specific places in here. So you remove this and push those pins in. The pin numbers are on your spec sheet, so I don't want to get into that. The other thing that I discussed, now unfortunately my wings are not here, these are going to go into storage, was the grommet issue with the big connector that goes here. The way that I solved it is actually so stupidly simple. I basically cut a hole in the middle of the grommet just big enough for the wire, and then I did like a pizza cut, like 8 slices, so then I'm able to push the grommet through, and then it kind of closes back on the cord. And then the last thing really quick here is the VOR antenna. So the instructions are that your lighting wire is supposed to run over this leading edge. So you can see what I've done here is basically, it also has to ground to the airplane. So this is the Bob Archer antenna. You can see I put it through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of my
rivets, and then between the screws that will go to the nut plates, and nut plates going to here, that's how it's going to ground to the airplane. I use their screws to hold the wire, and then these two screws are going to these are going to connect to the coax cable. So the reason I added these kind of sticky things, the reason I haven't zip tied down yet is just when I do the final install I will, but basically the coax cable is on the airplane, it'll connect to here, and then I basically just fiberglass this down. It has the 5 connections here, then I ran 2 just strips of fiberglass to hold it in place there. I think that's it. I think I described everything else, but of course, if you have any questions, go ahead and post them. Thanks.